Welcome to Creating Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Paige. This is an inspirational podcast where guests come on and share their real life stories. They discuss their struggles, hardships, and traumas. They also discuss how those encounters have helped them change, grow, and the healing process they've experienced. They share where they are today in hopes of helping someone else who could be going through the same or similar situations. So join me as we inspire others weekly to become the best versions of themselves. Hey y'all, welcome into another episode of Creating Yourself podcast. Today I have on Kristen, who is a domestic abuse survivor. She just left her abuser in September of 2023, so still kind of fresh for her, but today she's going to be talking to us about her story that kind of went viral on TikTok, which is how I found her. Hey Kristen, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to hearing your story. Like I just said, you're kind of still fresh out of it, and we were chatting just a second ago before we started recording. I'm happy to hear that you got out and that you're safe, which is always the most important thing, and that your son is safe, because you do share a son with this monster, as I like to call him. So that's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So yeah, just talk to us about what happened and where it started and your guys' relationship.
So it all started during COVID, and it all started on lies. I thought I was talking to a 33-year-old man. I was 35 or 36 myself, and turned out he was only 27. Lied to me about his age from the beginning. Kind of like love bombing, I thought I found the right guy, said all the right things at the right time, kind of like he swooped in right when I needed him. And then it just turned into, we should have a baby. And that happened very quickly. So we started dating in September 2020, and I was pregnant by April of 2021. And then, I would say I didn't notice anything until after the baby was born. And that's when, he would start to, put me down and tell me, oh, you don't know what you're doing with the baby. You don't, I needed his help for everything when I have two older kids myself. So I've been down this road. I know I've raised two already. I know what I'm doing. But I began to question my abilities as a parent and all of that. And so we come from different cultures as well. So there was a lot of blending of that together. And then I don't know what had happened in January of 2023. It was the day after New Year's. And that's when he was upset over laundry being on top of the dryer or something. And he works from home, but he would work outside. And he came inside and he just started a full-blown argument with me. Takes the baby out of my hands, who wasn't even a year old yet. And the baby's screaming and crying. And I'm like, give me back the baby. And he's like, no. And I'm like, give me the baby. The baby's looking for me, reaching for me. And that's when he starts to grab my wrist and twist it back. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I try to reach for the baby again. I go, I can't believe you just put your hands on me. And then he starts kicking me. And he's a big guy. He's like 250. And he starts kicking me as hard as he could. And that's when I was like, I need to get the baby away from him, and I don't remember how, but I get the baby away. And then I come out into my living room. I don't know if a lot of people saw that video, but I come out into my living room where my camera was for the baby. And that's when I go, you want to put your hands on me? I don't think so. And that's when he goes, oh yeah. And then he just full force headbutts me, breaks my nose. I get a deviated septum, and I have the baby in my hands the whole time. I don't know how I didn't black out. I don't know how I didn't drop the baby. If he would have missed and he would have hit the baby, you could have killed him.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew that moment. I was like, oh my God, I'm in a DV situation. I've never 40 years old. I've never been through something like that in my life. And that's when I was like, it's not a matter of when, not a matter of if, it's a matter of when I get out of this situation. And I just started like stockpiling any kind of evidence, I guess, like videos and audio recordings, and keeping them in a hidden file. And I wanted to have a plan, like, I need money, I need this, I need that. He made sure that he was financially abusive, emotionally abusive, physically abusive, kept me in like this bubble, and then finally, so I always had like, I was just making sure, going through the motions, that I didn't upset him every day.
Yeah. Right.
I was just trying to do what I thought was best for me. And, at the time, until finally, like, things just were not adding up. The emotional abuse was getting worse, like the verbal abuse was getting worse. Everything I did was wrong. Like it's like he couldn't stand the sight of me. And then I noticed on his phone, he was Googling, sulfuric acid, is specifically how you can make with another component carbon monoxide, with like things you could buy from Home Depot. Yeah. And I kept that. I was like, oh my God. Like I took a picture of that and I kept that. And, now we move up to September, and that's when the night before I went to the police. We went for a walk on a pier. It was like midnight. And then I kept thinking, and he was just mad. I don't even remember about what, but I just kept thinking, oh my God, he's going to throw me off this pier in the middle of the night. And I only had my phone on me, and I don't know how, but I was brazen enough to swipe down and hit the audio record button. And I didn't know what he was going to say, but I wound up asking, did you feel bad for what you did? Like, do you even regret breaking my nose? And he goes, I regret this entire relationship. He's like, I should have broke every single one. I should have broke every bone in your effing body and put you in the hospital. So that was just the night before. And finally, everything came to a head the very next day with the arguing, and he was starting to pack up his things. And that's when I decided that evening, he was trying to pressure me to go into his parents' house, that I had enough. And I called my best friend. I said, I'm on my way over there. I left the house with the baby. And that's when he starts calling me, get your ass back here. Do you have my location? If you don't get back here with my son in my car, then that's it. Okay. So that's when she was like, you have to go to the police. And I don't know why, but I knew in that moment, if I didn't go then, after everything that was happening, then I might not be here today to tell my story. So I went to the police. I got a temporary restraining order. They came and arrested him, and I haven't seen him since, thank God. But the first instinct that he did hit me, though, was 3 days after I had given birth to our son. I nearly died. I had preeclampsia. I had a postpartum hemorrhage, and I had gestational hypertension. And I was being poked and, blood work and all this other stuff for so long, and they couldn't find a vein, and they had to come in and do like a magnesium infusion or something. And I had a full-blown panic attack, and he just cracked me across the face as hard as he could. And I'm in the hospital, already. And I just thought in that moment, I'm like, oh, silly me, like a 50s housewife. Like, oh, I just needed, a smack to get me in, back in. But I didn't think anything of it at the time until, everything transpired. And now I'm just like, everything he ever told me was a lie. Everything he ever told me. But I never had the chance to dissect our relationship until I was out of it. Because I was too afraid in the relationship, to like, and we didn't text that much or anything like that because he was always here. But after going through it all, I find out that he's not a military veteran like he claims he was. He said that he was a sergeant or a lieutenant in the Army as a military cop. And he had forgotten that I submitted for his military records on his behalf when I was pregnant. And when I was dissecting the relationship, I found he never even went and finished basic training. He was discharged during basic training. It's on his military discharge paperwork. So he used to blame his outburst of violence and anger
On that.
PTSD from the war that he was never in. Yeah. And I remember telling the police, like, he's been to war, like, he's killed people, he can kill me, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of like he just set all these, like, things up in the beginning to, like, and just kept me busy enough to not ask questions, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But so far right now, we're just waiting on the, you know, his sentencing for the charges, and then who knows. But I live in a constant state of fear and anxiety every single day.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I like I told you before we started recording, and most people that listen to this know, like, I've been through domestic abuse as well. And, you know, I feel like that's one of the main things that they do. You know, they start out with, like, these small, what they consider, like, white lies, you know, like these small little lies, and then it turns into these huge lies. And then it turns into, like, their whole life is just a complete lie. Like, everything they tell you, like, you can't believe anything they say.
It absolutely is.
And it's just, it's crazy. So do you know if he's ever, like, done this before, or if you're, like, the first person that this has happened to with him?
So when we first got together, he kept talking about this ex of his. So we got together September 2020, and it turns out he said this ex of his from April of 2020 was falsely accusing him of domestic violence. And there's, like, in our state, there's, like, a website you can, like, search up your name, and it tells you any, like, pending, like, legal stuff. And I was able to see, I guess he got this expunged because the girl didn't, you know, because of COVID and everything, she didn't come to any of the court appearances. But he was charged at the time with, like, strangulation of a DV victim and, like, 3 other things. Yeah. But I guess since she wasn't in, you know, and cooperating with them, he got away with it. So that's not even on his record. So
wow,
it doesn't, you know, and there's not much else on his record, but this was just several months before. And had I known the extent of it, I would have never given him the time of day, you know?
Right. Yeah. That's what my ex had done to me, was, like, the strangulation and shit. And that's why, for me, like, everybody, you know, was like, I never saw anything and I never knew anything. And I'm like, because there was never any, like, marks. He never left anything. Like, it was all, you know, to this day, like, I still have trouble with, like, wearing necklaces and, like, shirts around my neck, because it just is, like, I'm always pulling at it because I can't stand it. But yeah, like, and looking back on my relationship with him after the fact, it's like he would always be like, oh yeah, my ex-wife would do this, which would cause me to do this. And it's like, but now you look at it in a whole, like, different perspective. Yeah, and now you look at it in a whole different perspective, and it's just like, no. So yeah. It's really hard. So you said that he was charged. What exactly was he charged with against you?
Initially, he was charged with second-degree aggravated assault and second-degree endangering the welfare of a child. And I hadn't even thought about it like that. Like, oh, he put our son at risk, you know?
Right.
But there was enough evidence then to charge him with those, which those were minimum 5 to 10 years in jail. But of course, that's not what he wound up pleading to. So.
Right, because you told me before we started recording he took a plea deal, which was for what?
Yeah, he just took a plea, I was told a couple weeks ago, for pleading to third-degree assault. I don't know if it's aggravated assault or whatever. So I think they're offering him under a year in jail, and it really depends on the judge and what I have to say the day of the hearing.
Which blows my mind. Like, I just don't understand why these men continue to get away with this kind of behavior. Like, how many women have to suffer, be abused, be hurt, die at the hands of men before more severe consequences are handed out to them? I don't understand it. It's like, literally, I feel like every single day on TikTok, I mean, just on TikTok, you hear of another abuse story that is happening somewhere in the country, whether
yeah.
she's gone missing, she's been found. It's someone else's story like yours where the abuse is actively happening, and nothing, I feel like nothing is being done compared to.
My inbox got flooded after I
Oh yeah.
posted that.
I'm
And
sure.
it's incredible, like the amount of support that I've received from like all around the world, but it's also incredible how many women have been in not only a domestic violence situation or are currently in one and are reaching out to me asking how I got out, but who have been through an exact same scenario like mine, where they've been abused or headbutt while they're holding their child. And, it just blows my mind that, that's why I took matters into my own hands by posting it, because I figured if I post it, maybe he won't kill me. Maybe he won't kill me. Maybe he won't hurt somebody else, because that's my fear. He's grooming the next one.
Yeah, it is. I've talked about my situation on TikTok before. And that's essentially what led me to start this podcast was, helping other women talk about their stories, and men as well. I would love to have more men come on and talk about situations that they've dealt with, whether it be abuse, addiction, anything and everything with men, because it's hard to get them to talk about things. But I would love to have that, conversation with them. But that's essentially what happened with me is like I've posted things about my situation. And, just that outpouring of not only like support, but the sadness of the amount of women that relate to it. It's just like, and you go on and you see like videos like yours that have been posted, and in the comments, the amount of women that relate to it, it's like astronomical. And
it's
it
disgusting.
Just blows my mind how many women deal with this on a daily basis. And it's just, I want to just like reach out to every single one of them and be like, you can leave. You need to leave. You have to leave. Like if you're listening and you're going through this, like there's so many resources and there's so many people that are willing to help you, even if you feel so alone, like because they've isolated you. Trust me, there are people willing to help for sure. Like you may think that you're alone, but like, I
didn't know anything about it.
You have friends, you have family that are still there. They just, like, you have to reach out.
Exactly. And you're still here. As long as you're still breathing, you could still fight, like you don't, and it just gets really tricky when you have kids involved, and especially the financial part of it, because, withholding money, like literally, like, just making sure that I was completely dependent on him financially. I was like, how am I gonna leave? Like, I can't even put gas in the car, and my car wasn't working. It was just his car. So I was like, how? And you know what? I was like, I can't go to bed tonight and think that I'm going to wake up tomorrow. Like, I have to leave, and I will figure out the rest as I go. And that's exactly what I did. And everybody and their brothers came out of the woodwork, was like reaching out to me like, oh my God, I had no idea, blah, blah, blah. People doing welfare checks for me at the police department, because they didn't know when that video was taken. And, I was like appreciative of the fact, like I kind of just got a preview of my funeral, like who would have been there. Like so many people reached out, but then that all stops, people go on about their lives, and here I am still kind of stuck, still having to deal with all the emotional side effects or whatever, and everybody kind of just being like, oh, I feel like everybody's kind of like, oh, we've heard this for so long already, like you should be over it. But yeah. I don't know if I'll ever be over it.
And I think that's the hard part, is like the initial support is always so strong, and there's so much. But once, after a couple months or even, less than that, I feel like it does taper off and the support kind of winds down. But you find those people in that first couple of months who are really, truly there for you, and the ones that call like every day, and the ones that constantly check on you. And those are the ones that are going to stick around regardless. And those are the ones that you have to remember are always going to be there. And even if you don't have the overwhelming support. You have to remember you have the few close people that are there that are going to stick around regardless. And those are the ones that you have to keep close to you. And just remember that, like, they're always going to be there regardless. And it's not easy, and it's hard, and it gets very lonely, and it's scary, and it's, you know, stressful, and the anxiety and the depression and like all of it kicks in, and all the things. But like at the end of the day, you're still alive, and you're not fighting for your life anymore. Like, that's what's important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I would rather look over my shoulder wondering where he's at now than knowing he's over my shoulder, not knowing what he's going to do to me next.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, it's scary. And like, especially if you guys are, you know, in the same town or you live close or whatever. Like, I'm lucky enough that my ex is in a whole nother state, you know, and I don't have that constant worry, but I do have the worry of like around holidays. And, you know, there's times where like I know when his kids' birthdays are. So like during those times, I'm like, is he in town? Like, is he close? Like, do I have to worry about running into him in those moments? Or, you know, when I go to certain towns that are close that are reminders of times, it's like those times are still hard, and like those areas are still hard. And I try not to go to those areas because it's like a constant, just like, I can drive through a certain town that's close to me and my anxiety goes from like chill, fine, totally cool to like awful. I mean, it's just an instant. And I will like drive past that town on the interstate doing like 90 to get past it as quickly as possible and just go.
Blame
I'm
you.
like, yeah, it's just those things. And like, I've driven it with my friends and she'll look over and she's like, why are you doing 95 on the, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I got to get through here. I got to get through here. I got to go. We got to go because I can't. And it's just, and I don't even realize I'm doing it until it's like pointed out. It's just an instinct at this point to just go. So it's hard. And I don't think it'll ever go away. Like, the healing process from domestic abuse never goes away. It just gets a little easier as time goes on.
Exactly. And I mean, leading up to when we had to go to the first court appearance for the restraining order, because they give you the temporary and then you have court like less than 2 weeks later for the final. And they addressed everything in that hearing, from custody to child support and all of that. So it's like a lot to process in a very short amount of time. But thankfully for me, I had a pro bono attorney, which, you know, most DV victims are like entitled to, and they were able to push the court date. You know, I didn't even know I was allowed to have representation for myself for that. So, I was lucky enough for that. And then it took several months for us to go to that final restraining order hearing. And when I tell you that it was November 28th that they issued the final, that entire month of November, like, I was on pins and needles because I was just like, I have to be in the same room at the same time. Oh my God. And, you know, I haven't seen him since he got arrested, you know, like, this is, you know, there's no way a narcissist is okay with how things are turning out for him right now, you know, like, there's no way that he's just going to let it go. And, I literally, like, you could just turn a corner and I would just jump. Like, you could scare me just from entering a room. But let me tell you, when I walked out of that courtroom and they had issued the final, because, you know, he's just afraid it's not going to go your way. I know the truth. Yeah. You know, he knows the truth or whatever, but you're just afraid that the judge isn't going to see your side and it's not going to go your way. And when it did, like, I walked out of that courtroom and I was able to breathe after being there. I think that was the first night I was able to sleep in months, because I was like, finally someone saw and heard me and believed me, you know, after so long of concealing it and hiding it from my friends and family. You know, they were mind blown to find out that that was what was going on. Like, what? Him? I can't believe, no way. There's, what? Like, they were just, couldn't believe that I was talking about the same person. Then having to tell my older kids, you know, and I chose to show them the video because I don't think they would have really, they're a little older, they're 9 and 15, but the impact that it's had on them has been just, it's life altering. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they need therapy. You know, it's hard enough for an adult to understand or try to understand how somebody can be one way and then it turns out there's something else.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, imagine trying to process that at like 10 years old and, you know, with someone that was your step parent pretty much. And
Yeah.
it's hard for them to wrap their minds around.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine dealing with it in that aspect. I mean, I have 2 kids, and when I was going through my situation, my kids were 3 and 8. So, and
Mm,
luckily I didn't have kids with him. Like, neither one of my kids were his kids, thank God. And he tried the whole thing. I mean, we were only together about a year and a half, right out a year and a half, something like that. And he was like, we should have a baby. And I was like, no, I'm good. Like, I have 2. I always wanted 2. I don't want any more. Like, no, thank you. And I thank God every day that, like, I did not, because I cannot even imagine trying to deal with him the rest of my life in any way, shape, or form.
exactly.
Um,
That's my
so
fear, that he's going to use the baby against me at some point. Like, I have
yeah,
custody right now, and he's allowed to have supervised visits for 2 hours a week that he's yet to use. So I'm thankful for that I haven't had to, like, and, you know, I don't think it fares too well for him that it's been 8 months and he hasn't seen his child. So,
yeah,
but I know going forward, whether he goes to jail or whenever he does and gets out, like, there's no way that he's not going to want to try to use our son as a way to abuse me. I've heard these stories too countless times where
hmm
women, where they're being abused, you know, through the child, you know.
yeah,
And courts are all about family unification, and, you know, just because they're the father, like, that means they're
hmm
entitled to, regardless of what they've done to me or him, that they should be entitled to visitation to, like, keep the family unit together or whatever.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like at some point, after so long of not seeing your child, like, what's the point? I mean, I don't know.
Exactly.
I guess at some point, like, maybe, I don't know. That is my honest opinion. Like, if you haven't seen your child in a year or longer, why are you trying now? Like, why are you trying?
Exactly.
I
And I
don't
know that's going
understand
to be
that.
the
I've
case.
never understood that. And I feel like the
Me
older that the
neither.
child gets, the children see that you're not trying. They're not stupid. Like, children
Hmm.
nowadays, especially, I mean, kids forever have been smart, but, like, for some reason, I just feel like kids are so much smarter nowadays, and, like, they see it and they're
Yeah.
not stupid. Like, they see that you're not around. They realize that you're not around. And then all of a sudden, like, here you are being like, hey, kiddo, like, hey, son, hey, daughter, you know, like,
Yeah.
it's just,
Like nothing
like,
ever
what?
happened.
They're not stupid. They see it. And it's just, if you're not being genuine with your, like, anything, I don't know. I just think that they don't. They're like, what? I don't know. It's just, they're not,
Yeah.
kids aren't stupid. And, you know,
Even,
like, kids are resilient.
no,
Like,
they're not.
they're gonna see who's there. They're gonna see who's trying. They're gonna know what's happening around them.
Yep. And I just think and I don't even think our son remembers him. He's nonverbal, so he's only 2, but
Yeah.
he's running past me right now. He suffered some PTSD from this, and mind you, he doesn't talk. Like, he wouldn't sleep, he wouldn't eat for like weeks. Like, it was torture, and I didn't go home. Like, I was afraid to go home because he was living in my house, and so I left with the kids, all 3 of them. I was lucky enough to have someone that, like, took us in for a couple months because I was deathly afraid to go to my house. I
Yeah.
mean, to be there alone, you know,
Yeah, I
and
don't blame you.
every knock at the door or every sound outside, every car that drives by, I'm jumping up, you know, like, living in fear in my own home. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So,
I
I
don't blame
mean,
you. I wouldn't either.
it's crazy to, no. But I mean, now it's like, if he were to come around, like, what would I can't imagine it having any positive impact on our kids at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't imagine it having anything. And then just even later on down the road, it just seems like, especially if he doesn't even remember him, like he's going to be like,
Yeah,
who are you? So it's
exactly.
unfortunate for the child, but in the long run, like, is it unfortunate? You just never know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing the best I can,
Exactly.
and I know that I'm giving him enough for the both of us because when he was
Right.
here, he wasn't doing much anyway.
Right.
So, but it does blow my mind how you can go from being here every single day and being around your kid every single day to just no contact, nothing.
Yeah.
And
I've never
I'm
understood that
I'm
either.
happy about that though. But yeah, me neither. It's just like whenever it's convenient, I guess,
Yeah.
to put on the show. Like, oh, I have a kid. Oh, da, da, da.
Yeah. I don't understand the man brain in that situation. Like, every single day to nothing. It just, I don't get it. It doesn't make any
I don't
sense to
get
me
it
at all.
either. I could
Yeah.
never. I could never.
I couldn't either. Like, I traveled back during COVID and I was gone from my kids for 5 days out to see a friend. And I think that's the longest I've ever been away from them. And I mean, granted, it was nice because that's the longest I've ever been away from them. But like, when I came home, I was just like,
Yeah,
I missed them like so much, and I didn't get to talk to them a whole
give
lot
you the
because I was on a
chaos.
different time zone. And it was just, I was like, what? I can't do
Oh,
this. Yeah.
it's like you
So,
feel like a part of you is missing. Like you
right.
can't if you're not with your child. Even
Yeah.
just for a couple days.
Even like the
Yeah.
weekends that they're gone, it's hard. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's hard. So, how have you been doing since you left? Like, how has that process been for you?
Um, it's been rough because like most days I'm okay, but
Mm-hmm.
then but I have extreme social anxiety. Like I didn't have that before. I was a bartender before COVID. Like I had a life, like I would go out with my friends, whatever, even though I was a mom. But
Mm-hmm.
now the thought of even going grocery shopping or going anywhere where there's a large crowd of people, like I just get completely overwhelmed. And so I order all my groceries online. Like I do the majority of my shopping online. Like everything gets delivered. I don't even have to leave the house, which I hate that I'm like that, like I want my old self back. But I think every day that goes by, I get closer and closer to, just finding myself again.
Mm-hmm.
But like the random like anxiety attacks that I'll get, or just the memories that just creep in, whether I'm trying to sleep or in a dream or in a nightmare, whatever. Like, or just reliving it. Anytime I open the comment section on TikTok, anytime I need to reply to somebody, like, and I hear the video play again, I have to mute it. I can't listen to it again because it's like
Yeah.
I'm there all over again. And
Yeah.
it's just awful. Like it just doesn't go away. I'm like, why am I still thinking about it? Why do I like, but it's just uncontrollable.
Yeah. It is. I mean, I definitely, like, I still live in the same house that it happened for me, and it's definitely hard. I mean, I still
Same.
have moments. Yeah, I still have moments where, like, I see certain, like, instances and it puts me right back in that moment, and it's definitely hard. And I still hear, certain things will trigger, and I still hear it happening in my head, but I just have to, like, remind myself, like, for me, it's like he's in a whole other state. Like, he's nowhere near me. So that makes mine a little easier, but it's just like, he's not here. He's been gone for this amount of time. Like, it's not happening. You're okay. You're safe. Like, all those things. And I think that definitely, like, reassures me that it's okay and, like, it's not happening anymore. But it's definitely like a time thing. Like, I feel like time definitely has to happen, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but you always, like, you watch certain things on TV and, like, you hear certain songs and you watch movies and, like, you always have something will, and that's the unfortunate thing about it. And people are like, oh, just get over it. Like, you're not in the situation anymore. Like, it's not still happening, like,
Yeah.
you don't deal with it anymore. Like, just get over it. Like, why can't you get over it? Like, I hate that question. Like, why can't you just get over it? Like, why can't you just move on? And it's like,
Yeah.
it's not something you're ever gonna move on from. It's not something you're ever gonna get over. It's always gonna be something that you have to look back on and like think about and hear and remember. But it's something that as time goes on, you will gradually like heal from it, you know? But I mean, I have a friend who's been through
Yeah.
like childhood sexual assault, and she still is like, there's moments where I'm right back to that 5-year-old little girl and I still remember it. And like, that's just a part of trauma, you know? But it's time that makes
Yeah.
us learn how to deal with it a little easier. So I hope and I pray that over
Yeah.
time it gets
I'm
a little
afraid.
easier for you.
Oh, thank you. I'm just afraid to ever let my guard down.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, I know.
it's always up. Like whether I'm just going outside to get the mail or I
Mm-hmm.
actually venture out and I have to take my kids to school or whatever. I'm
Mm-hmm.
constantly checking all the cars around, and you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? As soon as I get in my car, I lock my door. It's
Yeah,
just like these little
I
things
know.
then, you know, that I panic about real quick, and then I'm like I literally can't breathe until the doors are locked, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
constantly looking in my rearview mirror. Even me just going on vacation a couple of weeks ago, and like I know he's not there, but just like not know, like being somewhere different,
Mm-hmm.
like actually felt I was like I was a little nicer. I had less anxiety on vacation, just knowing
Yeah.
that he didn't know where I was, or you know, I wasn't like a sitting duck per se.
Yeah.
But it so I could see why, you know, it's a little reassuring for you that he's out of state.
Yeah.
I wish.
Yeah. It is. It's a little easier, but like I said, holidays and like I know when his kids' birthdays are and things like that, and I'm always like around those times I'm a little like more anxiety ridden for sure. But it's just a process, you know, and I always tell people and like I will never be fully healed from the trauma. I'm always healing, you know. It's just a
Yeah,
process, and you just have to figure out the
I feel like
best
it's
way
like a
for you.
lifelong process at this point.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't think that that's something that will ever completely go away, which sucks. And I think the hardest part, I've heard of this audio on TikTok. It says something along the lines of the worst part about trauma is having to learn how to heal from something that you didn't do to yourself. And it's like, damn,
Yeah.
like that's so fucked up, you know? But it's like, it's so true. Like,
Yeah.
we were put through something that we didn't ask for, we didn't want, but we have to figure out how to heal from it all by ourselves. And it's so
Yep.
shitty. But, I mean,
Exactly.
it just, I don't know. There's also the other saying of
Well,
like,
he's living his best life somewhere.
literally. And that's what makes me so angry is like, I can still see mine on like Facebook. Like, if I wanted to look him up, I can, you know, kind of thing. And it's like, he's just living in the best house, driving the best truck with his new fiance, and it's like they have the best life ever, and it's just like, listen, sometimes I wish that like my dad could have gotten a hold of you, but then I don't want my dad in jail forever, you know, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
right.
But it's like, oh god, I just why? Like, why are you allowed to get away with everything? And I'm over here like some days just on the floor crying uncontrollably and like can't get out of bed, but like you're just out here living your best life like you've done nothing to nobody. It's the
Yeah,
worst.
I mean, from luckily we didn't have very many mutual like contacts or friends or anything like that, so
Mm-hmm.
it's not like we had to deal with any of that. But from what I've been told and from what I've been, you know, I've heard, like it doesn't seem like anything's had to change for him besides where he lives, and that's it. Like it's literally like I literally am like riddled with anxiety and forever damaged from this, and
Mm-hmm.
he's just probably grooming the next girl and the next
Mm-hmm.
victim, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, how do we put a stop to that, like before they get to the next one?
Yeah.
It's like a vicious cycle.
It is. Yeah. That's the worst part is like knowing he's going to do it to somebody else. And I feel like that's one of the worst things is knowing that you're not going to be
Yeah.
the only one and you can't stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
And I mean, they're going to put him in anger management and batterers intervention class. What is that going to do? An
Probably
anger
nothing,
management
because
class and batterers intervention. Oh, you've learned your lesson.
yeah, probably nothing, because if he's a true narcissist, like, he's not going to feel anything from it anyway. So it's
No,
not going to
not at
matter.
all. You can't. He doesn't even know who he is. You know, like when someone lies like that, lie after lie after lie, like that's why I didn't even get to like mourn the loss of the relationship. You know what I mean? Because I didn't know about any of the lies until afterwards. And they were all lies. And everything he ever told me. So it's like, I didn't get to go, oh, I missed that part of our relationship. No, I've never once sat here and said, I missed that relationship or I missed this part of it. But no, because looking back after I had to deep dive into the relationship, it was all bullshit. You know, like there was nothing there.
Yeah. Because everything he told you was a lie. So,
Totally
like, the
denied
person you
that.
were with wasn't the person you were with. Or who you thought you were with, I should say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. That's almost like another trauma on top of the abuse. Is like, you were with somebody who you thought was this person, but then when you look back, it's like they had a mask on the whole time. So, like, you were with two different people, which is also very traumatic.
Mm-hmm. And
So,
it's like I brought this monster around my kids, and then I had a, a kid with the monster. Like I'm never going to be rid of him ever. And I mean, of course, when I look at my son, I don't see him at all. I just, you
yeah.
know what I mean? Like I don't look at him and go and think about his father. No, I look at him and I feel like if I didn't do what I did, he may not be here right
Mm-hmm.
now. Because if he was able to put our son in that danger in the first place, please, he would have had no concern for his, you know, he had, there's many other times where he allowed our son to get put in a situation where like he could potentially get hurt, and he's like, no, he's got to learn on his own. He's not even one, you know. So I mean, that's the main reason I got out for
Mm-hmm.
them and for me, because who's gonna take care of them if I'm not here?
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know.
That's always the biggest factor, is like, once the kids get affected, I feel like that, as a mom, that's what flips our switch. Like, we can take a lot, but when you put our kids in danger and we really truly see that, it's like, oh shit, okay, we gotta go. Like, we gotta do something, because this,
Mm-hmm.
like, we can handle a lot. We can
Mama
take
bear
the
mode.
beatings. We can take the bruises. We can handle the, like, push down the stairs and, thrown on beds and, like, push through doors. Like, we can handle all that shit. Like, whatever. But the second you endanger our children, time to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like
And
that's
that's
another
what
reason that women stay for a long time. It's like, we can handle it. Like, we can take it. But when you put our kids in danger, it's time to go.
there's no way I would have like after that moment, after the first hit, like I never, like I was always making sure like that he kind of wasn't around the kids by himself, you
Yep.
know, like I was just always kind of like right there, because I just didn't, if he could hurt me like that, then of course he could hurt the kids, you know. And having no regard for our son when he broke my nose, God, that was mama bear instinct kicking in 1,000%, because I I don't know how I didn't black out. I don't know how I didn't pass out. Like he literally broke my face,
Yeah.
and I held on to that baby even as I like went down to the couch.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've watched that video a few times, and I'm just like, how did she not just fall straight back, first of all? And, like, how did you not drop the baby? Like, I don't and you even kept, like, a tight grip on him. Like, it was
Mm-hmm.
just, I don't know if, like, God was right there and was like, you can't drop this kid, and, like, kept you awake. Like, there was something was there with you in that moment,
There
because I feel
definitely
like
was something there.
otherwise, like, it's just because the way he hit you, I feel like anybody else would have just knocked out and went straight down on their back. It was insane. I
Yeah.
mean, you, like, went forward and then
And
went to
I'm
the
like,
couch. It was so crazy. I mean, I've watched it a few times, just like, what the fuck?
and it was the worst pain of my entire life. And I've had 3 kids. I mean,
Yeah.
I felt like my face, that's why I kept going like this in the video. Cause like, I felt like my whole face was bleeding. Like I was on fire, and
I don't see
I
how it
still get pain. Like
wasn't.
I'm still in pain from it. And I don't know how it wasn't bleeding. Like I
Yeah, I
really
don't
don't. Cause
either.
that's what
Like,
it
I
felt
kept
like. Like my
looking.
whole face was just,
Yeah. It was
yeah, it
nuts.
took x-rays and everything and for them to tell me, but like, I'm like, that was the worst pain of my entire life. And now it still stretches to today. Like I literally can't breathe most days. Like I can't, like, I'll just like get random nosebleeds or whatever.
But,
Just like talking to somebody and all of a sudden it just starts like gushing blood.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, I mean, it looked like
But
it
definitely
was
someone
just,
was with me that day.
yeah. Yeah, I don't, because I kept thinking you did drop it, and then I like looked, and it's like there on your chest when you sit on the couch. You know, I was like, wow, I don't know how
And
that.
so many people in the comments were like, why didn't you just take the baby and run out? Or you were antagonizing him, or you were instigating him. Of course, not knowing like the full story or whatever, just from a
Right.
couple second clip of a video. But like, you know, there's no, in that moment, where am I going to go? I'm going to go run out in my socks with the baby and no car and just, run for,
Yeah.
what am I going to do?
Yeah.
But that's when the moment I said, I'm out of here. Like I checked out of the relationship, and everything I did, I made sure like, oh, if this sounds suspect or something I could use against him when I go to, so I knew I was going to go to the police. I just didn't know when. I didn't know how it was going to transpire. So that's why I just made sure like I had a hidden folder on my phone, or I would give my best friend like logins to things or send things to her and then delete it right away. So I kind of was like setting it all up for when it would happen. I just didn't know what circumstances were going to have to, come true for that to, for me to get out.
Yeah. Yeah. In the video, didn't it say something about your mom being there or something? Or was that something else?
She lives here too. And that was another video. So she was outside at the time when this was happening, and I guess she heard me screaming, and that's when she came in. And it was literally that video picks up seconds after he broke my nose. And I didn't want, what am I supposed to, I'm going to tell my mom, this big scary, he could take my mom in a second,
Yeah.
and so I didn't say anything, and I let whatever he said be the thing that he was going to say. He said, oh, I headbutted her by accident because I was trying to take the baby from her. That's what happened. And I'm sitting there like, like in so much pain, and then emotionally like couldn't believe that this person, like, yeah, he hit me before, but it wasn't until that moment that I realized that it was domestic violence, like, and that I've never, like, we've all been like pushed a little here and there, but nothing to that extreme.
It was that
So
intentional.
she believed what I said and what he said. Yeah. So she believed his excuse because I went along with it. And I even when I went to the doctor the next day, because I told him, like, listen, I'm in pain, like, I need to do something. And so he was well aware I was going to the doctor. But I didn't, I blamed our baby, even at the doctor, because I was afraid that they were going to know that it was him, and that they were going to maybe, like, think like they should do some investigating or call the police or something, and then he was going to kill me. So I said that the baby accidentally threw his head back and broke my nose. And I even told that to my kids, and I felt such guilt around that. Like, I blamed our baby for breaking my nose. But I mean, in the moment, I had to say what I had to say to stay alive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that happens a lot too. So I don't feel like that's anything to like feel guilty over now, or even then, because I feel like that is something that happens a lot just to, stay alive in that moment, or for the next couple of weeks until you figure out a way out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And luckily I all roads led to getting out, and I got out, but I even in that like, you know what I mean? The emotions, like are overwhelming. Like, I didn't know how I was going to ever get past day 1, day 2, day 3 after everything. But here, it's been just about 8 months, and I mean, I can tell my story. I'm not 6 feet under right now. I'm not,
Yep. It's one day at a time, and I always say, like, listen, sometimes it's minute to minute. Some days it's hour to hour. Sometimes it's day to day. Like, and you're going to have, like, 2 years from now, you may go back to that where it's minute to minute and hour to hour. And that's okay. That's a part of healing. That's just how it is. But at least you're still alive.
Exactly. Because too many women don't get out alive. And that's whenever, you know what I mean? That's when justice gets served, when they arrest him for, for murder. It's too many women have died or before something actually happens.
Yeah.
Because I think everyone's just too afraid to speak up.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. And that's the scary world that we live in. Too many women are coming up missing and never found, missing and found dead.
Yeah.
So that's the world that we live in, and it's sad that something tragic has to happen before justice is served. So
exactly.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us.
No, of course.
Yeah. So I will link your TikTok in the show notes. So if people want to check you out, they can find you there. That way, if they want to connect with you, they can as well, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm always telling people to message me, if they had questions or whatever, if they're in a similar situation, and you'd be surprised how many are in my inbox right now. So.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us today.
No, thanks for having me.
Yep. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this week's episode. Make sure you hit the follow button on whatever listening platform you are using. And head over to my social media pages and give me a follow there as well. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and now TikTok at Creating Yourself Pod. And if you have a story you would like to share on this podcast, email me at creatingyourselfpod@gmail.com, or you can message me on any of my social media pages. Make sure and come back next Tuesday for a brand new episode. Hope you guys have a great week. Bye.